Alright, hey ladies, I am back. It's Wednesday, so as promised, I'm here with another video. But before I get started with this video, I just need to have a little rant session. Like, whoever said that making videos was easy was a lie. And if I cussed, I would cuss y'all out right now. It's a lie. This mess is hard. I've made so many mistakes and had to keep pressing stop and starting over. Like, no lie, I probably tried to do this video like 20 times. Literally like 20 times. So, with that being said, whatever mistakes happen in this video, we just gonna roll with it because it's late. I am tired and I have a full day packed tomorrow. I'm actually out of town in Nashville, Tennessee for a conference with my job. So, if any of you ever go to conferences with your job, you know how jam-packed your days are. Like, literally, we're working from like 6 in the morning to like 8 or 9 at night. So, I am exhausted. But we're going to get through this video. We're going to upload this video. And y'all better respond and comment and interact as much work as I'm about to be putting into this. All right? All right. Whatever. Now that that's out the way, let's get it going. All right? All right. So, this is the book we worked with last week. And it's by Mika Phillips. Green's Not Your Best Color. Being an Original Girl in a Plastic World. So the lesson today, as you can see from the title, is called Get Out the Airbrush. And, sorry, my hair's sticking up. Alright. And like before, I really don't want to go through and read the book to you all, because if you really want the book, you got the author, you got the title, you know what the cover look like. If you really want it, you can go out and get it. So I'm really not going to sit here and just read this to you. But I want to just skim through it and talk about some of the good points that I've gained from it. So, again, it's called Get Out the Airbrush. And the Bible verse that they focused on today was 2 Corinthians 12 and 9. And it says, each time he said, my gracious favor is all you need. My power works best in your weakness. So now I'm glad to boast about my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may work through me. And that's 2 Corinthians 12 and 9. And even before I get into the lesson, like that's the first thing that's on this page. And that is a powerful, powerful verse to think about how God works through you through your weaknesses. And with this lesson, Get Out the Airbrush is basically talking about like how we strive to be perfect and like look perfect and be perfect in everything that we do. But when doing that, like the whole I really wouldn't even have to get into this. The whole gist of this is that if we were perfect, how could God, Christ, or whatever, how could he work through us? He couldn't, because we would be perfect. And the only way he works through us, is this verse is saying, is that he works through my weaknesses, which is a wonderful thing. And it's almost like what we talked about last week with those fatal flaws. Like the things that we think are flaws are actually God's masterpieces. So it's those little things in us that we think are not great is exactly what he considers to be like his best assets for us. So my flaws, he loves it. That's his masterpiece. My weaknesses, he loves it, as this is what he works through me for. Like, for instance, I can go ahead and give another personal testimony. For me, like, self-confidence was not my deal. This is not something that I was working with. And to sit here and make YouTube videos and to really try to be out here inspiring people to love themselves, that's a testimony within itself for me. And that is truly God working through my weaknesses. This is an arena that I would never want to get into, to have to talk and interact with people. I'd so much rather be in my bed by myself, laying there alone, instead of being interactive and actually talking to people. I'm a homebody. So to see how God is really working through me to help others, it just amazes me. So that again is a testimony within itself. So just remember that 2 Corinthians 12 and 9, that God works through our weaknesses to achieve his goals. All right, so let's get into this. All right, it says look around you. So grabbing your magazines, turning on the TV, looking at the different music videos, or even driving down the highway and looking at the billboard ads. It says, like, what do we see? You see the flawless girls with large breasts, low-rise waistlines, bony hips, skinny waist, tan bodies, luscious lips, perfectly colored hair, like this here, Testimonial Tresses. Just playing. And not a zit in sight. And it said, what's the incentive for obtaining this perfection? Like, why are we really trying to do all this? And what extremes are some people going to achieve this so-called perfection? Things like the liposuction, like the booty injections, lip injections. There's so many different things that, or an extreme that people are really doing. It's like, no, I'm not really just getting my tummy tucked just because I need to. It's like, how many plastic surgeries have you had, and what are you trying to really achieve with this? Like, when would you consider yourself to be perfect? Like, does it ever stop? But, and that's really what she says. She says, after all of this effort to achieve perfection, does the knight in shining armor show up? Or is it just a disappointment and depression that sets in when we realize that our imperfections are still glaringly obvious? And I don't remember what show I was watching. I think it was like, what was that? Maybe it was called Ugly Duckling or something like that? Some type of reality show where they went in and they did plastic surgery on people that considered themselves to be ugly and really transformed them into being some beautiful swan, I guess is what they were trying to do. But studies had shown, and they went back and looked at some of the contestants and talked about how, yes, in that state, it was lovely to turn around and see the new them and to look what they thought was perfect. But after a while, like basically probably after you got used to that look, that same depression kicked right back in if you not feeling like you were worthy enough, or that perfection that you thought you had was no longer there. So for some of these people, I think that do like the extreme stuff, it's just that. Like after they get used to it and they feel that depression is set back in, they go and they want to have another surgery, or they want to do something else more extreme to try to keep that perfection momentum going. You know, whenever they stop, they realize that, oh no, I'm really not perfect. So they continue to do that. But that's neither here nor there, I guess. But it's just really weird that we spend our lives striving to be perfect when we never, ever, 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 ever will attain perfection. So it's like, why try? Why not just accept who we are? But let me go on into this. She goes on to tell some of her personal stories, like on how she thought that she was perfect, and not even in looks, but like a perfectionist at my craft, a perfectionist at what you do, and how she, what does it say? She talks about, she says, it isn't that I think Christ accepts perfection from me. She knows better than that. Deep down in her heart, she knows that perfection does not exist outside of Christ. Only he can be so holy and entirely unblemished. Nevertheless, she had found herself striving for her absolute best in almost every aspect of her life, from her looks to her job, her relationships with people, and even in her relationship with God. But sadly enough, she felt like a loser when she failed to live up to her own realistic expectations. And even beyond like the perfectionist thing, I think sometimes as women, we can set our expectations so high for ourselves that they're not attainable. And when we can't attain those goals and those expectations that we set forth, we then hurt our own selves. So, and it's not saying lower your standards or lower your bar, but it's really start thinking about some goals that are actually attainable. And I know at work we call them SMART goals, and that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and then timely. So it's thinking about SMART goals and how can we set those goals to reach bigger goals, break them down into smaller steps, because you set yourself up for failure when trying to be a perfectionist and reach those high goals instead of starting lower and just working your way up the ladder. Anyway, again, that's another little soapbox issue. She still goes on to talk about how she tries to be perfect in everything that she does, but realize that if you were perfect, but if I were perfect, she would never encourage herself with scripture and memorize it in order to keep Satan from defeating her. She would never be perfect. What did she say? I would never meet different kinds of people and gain all sorts of experiences if I've already had that perfect job, that perfect church ministry, and that perfect boyfriend. And I would not need to spend time with God because he wouldn't have any lessons to teach me. Why? Because I'm perfect. So the bigger picture is what she's trying to say, that without any of our human flaws, life would be effortless. Absolutely no problem. But then again, if I were physically perfect, I would be boring, unoriginal, a mere replica of a glamorous images of perfection that we see all around us. You wouldn't be yourself. So to me, what I really loved is she brought up this Bible verse, because so many people you can find a lot of stuff in the Bible to contradict other things. So she brought up this Bible verse that says, Matthew 5:8, It says you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. But then she talks about, now, isn't that a contradiction? And at first glance, you may think that. But honestly, what God is saying, he's not asking us to be perfect with like our bodies, our skins, the perfect guy or anything like that. He requires that we be perfectly mature and complete in his likeness with the goal of living a sinless life. Not that we be physically flawless. So when you read that verse, you are to be perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. He's not talking about the outward appearance of being perfect. He's talking about just being in his likeness in the maturity level and complete in his, like in our goal of living a sinful life or sinless life. What a relief it is to know that being perfect in Christ doesn't require liposuction, tummy sucks, or even plastic surgery. It's not that difficult. When we live by the rules of society, it is so hard to try to live up. But when you follow the way of Christ and you follow him, it is not that hard. The stresses of the world are beneath you. The ideal of perfection, you know it doesn't exist, so you don't strive for it, and you just take yourself for who you are. And that's really the whole point of all of this, is loving ourselves and the skin that we in, for what we are, for what God created us to be. The images of the world are of the world. We are not of this world. You could really say, like Lil Wayne said, what does he say? Like, I'm a Martian or something like that. Yes, I am an alien to this world because I am not of this place. My home is in heaven, and that's where I belong, with my Father. So with that being said, I'm not of this world. Your practices, your language, all that you speak is crazy to me, because that is not who I am. And I am loving myself and who I am, because I know this is just a place that I am passing through. And that is what we all should think like. We all should know that this is not our home. This is not where we reside for the rest of our lives. It's like, think of something greater. Think of where you're gonna go. Just enjoy the time that you have here and enjoy the person that you are, and stop trying to have these false hopes of being something that we're never going to be. And that's perfect. All right. So, dang, it's already at 12 minutes. So, here's the definition that Webster.com defines for perfect. And it says perfect, being entirely without fault or defect, flawless, satisfying all requirements. So, what I want you to do is think about one or two people that you admire now, or that you admired when you were younger and considered to be perfect or close to perfect. What did you see in these people that makes them seem perfect to you? And when you're thinking about that, be specific. What was that? All right. So the second one, you know that these people aren't really perfect. Nobody is. So what types of things do humans do that reveal our imperfections to others? Just humans. So not necessarily you at this point, but just humans in general. What do we do that reveals that we're imperfect? It's so many things. But this is just rhetorical questions for you to think about. Next, now we are on you. What about you? What weaknesses or struggles do you have that you camouflage in order to appear perfect? That is a good one. I'm going to read it again. What weaknesses or struggles do you have that you camouflage in order to appear to be perfect? Do you hide a fear of some kind? Do you conceal a habit? So since we don't seem to measure up, let's look at someone who is perfect. God. When does it say that God gives power to his children? And that is in 2 Corinthians 12:9. If you want to read that, the question is asking you, when do you see that God gives power to his children? What should we boast about? And what happens when we are weak? I'm not going to go to that part because we're already at 15 minutes. But that was 2 Corinthians 12:9, and then also 10. But what for your homework, and what we're probably going to take over to the Beauties with the Story Facebook group, is read Matthew 5:4-8. And what does this verse say that you are to be? We already discussed that it is not possible according to the world's standards. What do you think this verse is really asking you in particular? So for yourself and for tonight, take a few minutes to talk to God. Focus on your idea of perfection and how it fits into your life. But what I want you to do after you focus on that, actually surrender to God the areas that you want him to mature and make more complete in him. So our focus for this week is to think about those ideals that we have of what perfection is, and know that that is not something that we have to try to obtain. Honestly, let's not even work on perfection.